welcome in. My name is Liz if you're new here, and today our topic is going to be travel on a budget. So I want to share with you how to travel on a budget because a lot of people don't know, or they just don't know like tips and tricks on how to travel on a budget. And I've traveled to 6 countries and lived abroad in 2, and I am not a millionaire. I don't make like 50K, 100K a year, anything like that. And I've gotten to travel to all these places and also live comfortably and explored everything I wanted to explore. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about, and that's what I want to share with you all so you can too travel on a budget. So let's go on and get into it. So number 1 for traveling on a budget, and the most important that people always are like, how can I afford this, would be flights. So flights can be expensive, it's true. And if you don't know the travel hacks on how to get a good flight, how to get a good price, then really you're going to be paying too much for a flight, or you're just not getting the best like bang for your buck, they say. So I want to help you on how it is that you can get a good price on your flights. So first things first is, do not make the mistake of booking a flight through Google Flights. The reason I say this is because when you Google a flight, they're also going to look at all the other things that you have Googled. So if you've been Googling like accommodation in Thailand, flights to Thailand, in a Google search, then they're going to hike up those prices, and it's just not the best way for you to book that flight. So to get a good price on your flight, I recommend a few sites it is that you can search these for, and that would be booking.com. With booking.com for flights, you actually can book flights and accommodation, but I'm just going to be talking about specifically flights. And with booking.com, you're able to book flights for a low competitive price because they look at multiple different, basically airlines and everything on what destination you want to go to and try and find the cheapest flight for you. Booking.com is a really good one for that, and yep, I've used it many times. Another one that is really good would be booking directly from the airline. Now, this isn't necessarily true for every single airline. However, when you're searching directly from the airline, you can always go ahead and change the timing. So maybe doing a flight that is super early in the morning, or doing a flight that is super late at night, those tend to be cheaper flights. And that's just how it goes in the airline world, but that is how you're going to be able to find flights that are a little bit cheaper for you. Also, when you're booking through the airline, you also can see about like longer stopovers if you're doing a really, really long flight, and try and make a mini trip out of wherever your layover stopover is and make a trip out of that. That's just something that I've done, and it actually works out pretty well, because if you have like, let's say maybe half a day layover in a place and the flight is way, way cheaper, then you also get to stay in that place for a day or so. That's just something that I do, and it's like a tip if you are traveling a lot and you want to see a lot of places. You can always take that long layover and make it into a holiday. Another really popular website that I use to get really discounted flights is Skyscanner. Now with Skyscanner, it's one of the like most well-known flights for finding really competitive prices, because they look at all of the airlines, all of the competitor prices, and try and give you the lowest one that they can find. And they also don't have a booking fee. So this is one of my favorite ones. And it's really simple to use, and a feature I really like about Skyscanner is you can actually, when you're looking on the website and you're on the computer, it's easiest if you do it on the computer, you can go ahead and select in there like a destination that you want to go to. So I'm going to use the same example of Thailand, and you would select, okay, so for the whole entire month of February, I want to know what the prices are. And then they will keep you up to date on which day is the cheapest, and they'll send you an email if you want, and then you can be like, okay, boom, and then you select the cheapest flight date that is for that month. And that's what I did actually when I went to Thailand when I needed to go back in 2019. Another feature with that is actually you can just sign up for like an email list of like, I want to go anywhere, and like do a filter of I want it to be under like $500, and then they'll send you the information, Skyscanner will, on like, okay, it looks like we've got a flight to Greece for just $350 one way. It's gonna leave on a Tuesday night from New York. You can also select like, okay, I want to leave from New York, I want to leave from Miami, I want to leave from Chicago, and then select like, so in the month of February, I want to go anywhere, I want the flight to be under $500, and I want it to leave from Chicago International Airport. They'll send you updates on the cheap flights, and they'll send it to you in your email if you're wanting that. That's something that is absolutely amazing. If you want to go anywhere, that one's amazing. So after COVID, because I'm not telling anyone to book any flights right now when there's COVID going on, I want to make a disclaimer of that because y'all need to be safe. But this is just something for your knowledge for the future when countries open up more and it's safe. Okay. Number 2 on my list of travel on a budget would be accommodation. So flights obviously are the most expensive, and then number 2 would be accommodation, or for some people you're paying more for accommodation than your flight. All of that kinds of things. I'm talking about how you can get the most out of your trip experience-wise and pay the least. So something that a lot of people don't know, since in the US it's not here, would be staying in hostels. Hostelworld.com. Come on, you got to get with it. So Hostel World is absolutely amazing because, especially as a solo traveler, or if you're traveling in smaller groups, you're going to be staying in like dorm-like accommodations, and you're going to be able to socialize and meet a lot of people and pay a very minimal amount. So I've stayed in lots and lots of different hostels around the world, and I've actually met a lot of travelers this way as well. And Hostel World is a very reputable company, and they, make sure the accommodations that they have on there are good. Look through the reviews, of course, because people, they can only make a review if they've stayed there, and it also has the reviews up to date of like people that have stayed there very recently. But the good thing actually about using Hostel World is they're very trustworthy, and their rating is all based off of people that have actually stayed at the hostel. You can't make a review unless you've stayed there. So it depends on how expensive the hostel will be due to the country. Because for instance, I did just a tiny bit of traveling in Europe, not that much, but the hostels there were more expensive compared to Southeast Asia. However, the hostels in Europe tend to be honestly like really, really nice, and you're paying around like $15, I would say. Whereas if you're staying in hostels in Southeast Asia, they might still be really super, super nice, but they'll be even less. Like I'm talking $3, maybe $5. It just depends. But also in Southeast Asia, you don't necessarily have to stay in a hostel to get cheap accommodation, which moves on to my next budget travel accommodation hack. Book Airbnbs. So if you're traveling in bigger groups, so Or you just want to have your own private room. Maybe you're teaching online. Maybe you have an online job and you need your own space and you want that comfort. You can book a whole entire room, a whole entire villa, someone's entire house, which is basically what Airbnb usually is, and they will let you do that. And also the price is pretty darn awesome. Typically for Airbnbs, they usually want you to stay a little bit longer, but that's not necessarily the case for all. And Airbnbs also are in the US, so this isn't a thing that the US doesn't have. The US is a little bit behind compared to other countries in the world who have had it longer, but Airbnb is in the US, so check that out. If you're doing a family trip with people, you can do that. For families that want to book on a budget who are doing maybe a staycation around in the US and they want to have the comfort of having a whole entire villa or a whole entire cabin or something for their family, then I would recommend you stay in a place that is called Vrbo, VRBO, Vrbo.com. If you book with Vrbo.com, you're able to get a whole entire villa, whole entire cabin, for instance, and it is very friendly for families for accommodation. If you want to book any of the ones that I have mentioned, go ahead and use my link below. I do get just a small portion of the commission from it. However, I would not recommend these to you unless I have used them myself, and I use these for all of my trips, and they are all very reputable and amazing. And I want you to be safe and be on a budget and be able to have a wonderful time on your trip. So it doesn't just help you, but also helps me as well, and I would really appreciate if you use that link. No hostels or families, and you're a solo traveler who wants to have their own private room, but you don't necessarily want to stay in a whole entire villa, a whole entire cabin, or anything like that. I recommend that you price compare on booking.com for competitive prices for hotels. So booking.com will show you hotels, hostels, Airbnbs, a little bit of mixture of all, and you can go in there and do price comparison on what it is your budget is. And booking.com usually has a variety of budgets for you. So if you're looking for a low budget, it'll have that. If you're looking for a high budget, it'll have that as well. Lastly, number 3 for travel on a budget is food. So depending upon the country, you're gonna have different things on how it is you can stay on a budget. So if you want to really be on a budget, for Europe, for instance, it's going to be different compared to if you're in Southeast Asia. So for Europe, a lot of the restaurants tend to be a bit more expensive compared to Southeast Asia. However, if you're comparing prices with Europe to the US, then Europe tends to be cheaper than the US. And with that, so it kind of depends on how much your budget is for food, but if you want to do the lowest amount possible, because you want to see a lot of sites, you want to do a lot of trips and food, and you want to save a lot of money on food, I would recommend that, because Europe has a lot of parks, that you actually do a lot of picnics. And you can just go to the fresh markets they have, go to the grocery stores that they have, and buy picnic food and do that. Or even if you're staying like in an Airbnb and you have a kitchen, then you can cook your food and do that sometimes. Depends on how long you're staying in the place. Obviously, if you're moving around all the time, then it's not as convenient for you. But if you're staying like in Spain, for instance, for a whole month or something, and you're staying in an Airbnb, then food on a budget would be to picnic and buy some food, eat out sometimes, and yeah. However, for Southeast Asia, it's actually more expensive if you are cooking and making your own things, because most of the stuff at the markets you have to buy in bulk, and that's the only street food is actually a really big part of the culture, and it also is extremely, extremely cheap and extremely, extremely delicious. Mwah. So, for Southeast Asia, cooking your own food and picnicking is not necessarily a thing that they do or is as affordable. So for Thailand and Southeast Asia, you're going to want to eat the local food. And what do I mean by eat the local food? So for places like Asia, eating the street food and eating at places that you will see a lot of locals eating at, that's super packed, those are the places that you want to eat, because obviously all the locals are eating there. Asia has a big street food culture. Southeast Asia specifically really has a big street food culture, and that's where you're going to find really cheap food for really delicious prices. Idea on pricing for food in Southeast Asia. I ate out at street food vendors almost like 80 to 90% of the time. At some times while I was living there, it was only I ate street food, and I probably only spent around $100 for food for my whole entire month. And I could eat anything I wanted. I could get hot pot, go for sushi, eat lots of Thai food, eat a lot of food, get coffee all the time, bubble tea, street food snacks. Really, I ate too much, to be honest, and I only spent about $100 per month. If you're new here, I am a travel blogger, and I do have lots of stories and guides for you on my website, and I also am the same handle for all of my social medias, which is Wandering Worldwide with Liz. So go ahead, give me a follow. I appreciate you for being here. Well, those are my 3 most important travel on a budget tips that I have for you, and I thank you for listening and watching with me, and I hope that these tips have helped you and will also be useful for you when you prepare to go on a trip in the future. And I thank you so much. Peace, love, and light, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah.